All right, we are going to be starting up with our fifth and final session for today. And before we get started with that session, I guess I should make sure that I announce the social, which will run from 4 to 6 downtown at CC's. We'll be meeting together at CC's, those who are able to, legally able to go. We'll meet up there between 4 and 6. But anyway, without further ado, we'll start off with our tentative presentation.
So good afternoon. So Andrew and I it's not on. There you go. Okay, so Andrew and I for our class project, we made a game called Tentative. So with our name, it's kind of like a hint of our games project. The name Tentative kind of means like a period of like uncertainty. And our sociological issue with our game is that we wanted to cover minimum wage and poverty. Press front. Let's click it.
Oh no, it's not going at all.
You just click this one, maybe. What's going on? Okay, so this is our game description. So the plot premise of our game is that basically everyone that plays the game is all minimum wage workers at the diner. So basically, as you can read, it's like a rundown diner in the middle of town, and everyone that plays it is a minimum wage worker. So everyone's making the same amount of money initially through the game. So basically throughout the game, you're trying to make ends meet, and you roll a dice to determine your income. So some game mechanics that we included is that there's gonna be a deck of 54 cards that Andrew and I split up and made like custom cards for each thing. And then we also have dice that you roll, like I said, to make the income. And then also we have like a rule booklet that explains the game rules and the minimum wage map, the United States, kind of bring more insight into why we made this project.
Okay, so the rules of the game are pretty extensive, but we'll give a general rundown. So everybody sits in a circle and plays from the same central deck, and then they all have a 10-sided die. So turn proceeds where whoever's turn it is in the round draws a card, and then it'll have an effect. So it'll either be good, bad, or neutral. Like you get sick and miss your shift, your child picks up the violin in school, or you want a scratch out ticket. So you resolve those effects, then you roll the 10-sided die to see how much money you made. We wanted to focus on, minimum wage employees and really how volatile that income system can be. So there's a chance you don't make enough money to get yourself through the end of the month. And then at the end of each round, everybody has to pay their rent. Rent starts at $500 per person, which we'll get into why we picked that number later in the presentation. But cards in the deck can increase rent, so it can change per person. So it's a really volatile means of getting income, but a very standard means of having to spend money every month. So there's 3 ways for the game to end. There's for smaller games, it'll typically be somebody goes broke. They don't have enough money to pay rent at the end of a round, and so they're out of the game. And then this game supports 2 to 6 players. So with larger groups, you can share resources amongst each other, which we did to sort of highlight the importance of social support for people who work these minimum wage jobs. So you can collaborate with other players. And if you get through all 54 cards in the deck, which is tough because there's some good ones there, then it's possible to get through the game and have everybody win.
So these are some of our example cards we made. So we start off with 40 bad cards. So that this game, obviously, as a minimum wage worker, you're going to face a lot of adversity. So naturally, we made like the most hardest cards more common. And then there's 10 good cards that are going to give you like a little bit of a benefit. Then there's 4 neutral cards. 3 of them have like a chance-based system in which you could benefit or lose something entirely. But like I said, it's based off chance. And then one of the 4 neutrals actually saying that is like literally nothing at all. So it's kind of just like a placeholder. So for one of the examples that we did, I made the inheritance card. So basically it's like a real life, you get an inheritance. It's kind of like profit you can gain. So you'd roll the die and then click that as income for your turn. And then for the neutral one, that's like a chance base, whether you could profit or lose, is go to the casino card, which for that one, you would roll the die. And if it's an odd number, you lose $100. If it's an even number, you'd gain $100. And then for an example of our bad card, we had the card of your coworker ditched, and then you roll the die twice and take the lower number. So like just like real life, if your coworker's not at their shift, you're not going to gain from it. I can do this one. Okay, so for our rent mechanic, we basically based it off like one of the cheapest like medium studio apartments in Arkansas, which is $577. But like we said initially, our rent starts out at 500 per round, but it could increase. Just like in real life, landlords could increase the rent for clauses or whatever they feel like, really. And then, yep, so once rent in the game becomes like $607, that's kind of when you feel like a lot of heat building on you, and that's kind of where you're coming to your end. And then for our dice rolling mechanic, the odds seem to be in your favor when you think of it. Like the average dice will be 5, but there's also gonna be times where you get like 1, and you kind of end up just being taken out very early on if you don't keep rolling ones. And then, like I said, a string of bad luck take you out of the game very fast. But when things are going good, you forget how close you are to losing. So that's the tailwind effect, where once you're getting so much, you kind of forget all the adversity you faced.
During our demonstration games, Bailey and I just did 2-player games, and in all of them, he got over $2,000, and he did not win a single one of those games. And I thought I was going to lose every single one, but I squeaked out of it.
Came in on top.
Here's for those median studio apartments. The cheapest studio apartment median in the United States is more expensive than our rent starts in this game at $577 a month in Arkansas. So we put the top 5 and bottom 5. DC is like far and away the most expensive, with the median studio costing $1,600 a month. A little bit more on game design. So that 40-10-4 ratio we chose for good, bad, and neutral is because when you are a minimum wage and you're so close to going bust at any given point, bad luck feels a lot worse and it sticks out to you, and good things sort of, get swept under the rug because you're trying to deal with all the bad that's coming. Good cards were included for the sake of balancing out gameplay and also to highlight the importance of social support. Most of the good cards are things like federal assistance, your family's in town, a guy who knows a guy, stuff like that. Neutral cards are kind of just included as a chance to move money around. They don't really accomplish anything. And those are things like playing the lottery or going to the casino, where it can feel beneficial, but in the larger scale of these institutions, they're not really all that helpful. And then, like we alluded to earlier, it supports 2 to 6 players, and the number of players you have changes the win state of the game. Yeah, more players means fewer rounds have to be completed. If Bailey and I are the only ones playing, then we each have to get through 27 cards.
Yeah.
But if you have a 6-person game, you all have to do fewer than 10. So you can actually finish the game.
Yes, so both times we barely made through like half the deck, so it can end really fast, like just like it's a game of chance, like we said. So it's very fun, very volatile, very unpredictable. And then for marketing, so our original idea that when Andrew and I talked about, we wanted to make the game like, if we were to theoretically sell it, we would want to sell at the state's minimum wage, like here it'd be like 1080. And then for our profits, we would like to, if we were to make this game, we would donate it, like we have full philanthropic marketing and be able to donate the proceeds of charities that combat poverty. And one of the charities I researched has like a lot of like hands-on doing that is CARE International, but also CARE has like different levels like at each country. So it'd be like CARE USA if we want to do at the United States level. And then for the publisher, Andrew had the great idea of doing like Game Writer Blue Orange, since they have experience with the more like the simpler card games like this one, which our game is just literally just cards and then a die. But yeah, so Mattel or Hasbro would probably be more complex, and this is more of a realistic goal if we were actually to market this game. Yeah. And then also for advertising, we could also do like on park stop benches, ads and diners, menus, posters, and local game stores, like kind of like that one downtown, ideally. And then also we could just give out free games, great game sets to market out like the Muck or the Resident Hall, so students could check it out and just spread the word that way. And then, like we said, we'd like ideally, if we were to sell this game, we'd like to donate the proceeds to help combat poverty and also bring awareness of how hard it is to be a minimum wage worker. And then for our sociological themes, obviously the big issue of this game is that it covers poverty and the struggles of the lower class. With a lot of like the game mechanics and the cards that we chose are kind of like real life issues you face, like your car breaking down, and sometimes you make tough choices on whether you can pay for your car, or it's just going to affect like your money you make later on for not going to shifts. And then obviously another issue we had with it, another topic we covered was conflict theory. And the main part of that is that everyone's a lower class worker and they're kind of competing against life itself, but also the landlord, who's kind of like a unseen antagonist that raises your rent or creates issues with you. And then finally, we have consumption theory, in which the players are economic consumers who manage their money carefully or risk failing to pay and getting taken out of the game. I mean, unknown fate, like they could be homeless, they can get help, but it's really ambiguous what happens to someone to get out of the game. And yeah, we have three main categories for the issues that they could face. These could be in the form of medical issues, housing issues, or car issues, in the forms like consumption. So these are all like major things that people have to pay for in real life, and that could take them to debt.
Okay, so like we said, the major sociological theme is minimum wage and its relation to poverty. So the federal minimum wage in the United States is currently $7.25 an hour. The last time it was raised was in 2009. So an employee working 40 hours a week makes around $1,100 a month. So while we could have made it so that rent starts at like a more realistic number that matched it, we also took into account, like if you're paying for childcare, if you're paying for food, if you're driving to work, you have all these other expenses. So we figured that the player as the character in the game is paying to keep themselves alive, and then it's whatever you have left at the end is how you're paying rent. Tipped laborers can be paid as little as $2.13 an hour. It's stated that this is only a fair wage if there is a reasonable expectation that you're making the money back in tips to meet the federal minimum wage. Although this isn't always enforced, and since tip-based payment is volatile, it's not always guaranteed that you'll even be making minimum wage.
So that kind of applies to our dice too. The dice kind of plays on that if you have like a good day at work or a bad day at work, thematically anyways. And then this is also the map that we use to like do the minimum wage each state. Like recently South Dakota updated theirs to 1080. In the previous year, I believe it was maybe like $9, I think. Yeah. Something like that around there. But yeah, obviously it varies very widely across the United States and what the minimum wage is, but they're very tough wages to live on, as you can see from this. And then these are our sources. And thank you for giving us your time. I did it.
Very, very cool. All right. Give me just a moment. Since the theme of the session is to kind of really explore both games and culture, instead of giving a double dose of games immediately, let's shift over a little bit to culture. Except perhaps let's shift to discussing cancel culture.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Asta Kiran Magar, and I am a freshman undergrad majoring in Bachelor of Business. Today, I'm going to present about cancel culture. Cancel culture can be explained as a process of publicly calling out or criticizing an individual or an organization for something they did controversial or problematic. It pressures someone to face consequences like social boycott, loss of employment, and public shaming. It has become a popular trend for people to make people hold accountable for something they did controversial or which are not accepted in society. According to the SSICC 2022, he explains cancel culture as a movement to remove celebrity status or esteem from a person, place, or thing based on offensive behavior or transgression. Cancel culture has mainly affects celebrity or bigger people because they are more in they have like more faces in public. It takes place online, in person, with friend and family, or in workplace. Cancel culture is also known as a modern form of ostracism. In ancient Greece, Athenian leader Callisthenes creates the punishment of banishing people to prevent a single person from being a tyrant. So basically what happens is was like as usual, like a voting system. For example, they would cast 6,000 votes and people with bigger number of votes was banished from the society. So, and if if they reject going being banished, then they also used to be given death penalties. So cancel culture is everywhere. Cancel culture prevalent in 2010s and early 2020s. And according to the Google Trends data, indicates that there was almost no search interest in phrase cancel culture until second half of 2018 and early 2019. According to the Grispan 2020, cancel culture became popular as a part of Me Too movement. The Me Too movement was used for both men as well as women to call out their abusers on platform where their accusations would be heard. So there are many benefits of cancel culture. The first one is holding powerful people accountable. It helps to shine a light on problematic behavior and encourage people to be more mindful of the impact of their words and actions. The second one is creating culture of accountability. And third one is giving marginalized group a voice. Overall, cancel culture can be a tool for social change and can contribute to a more just and equitable society by holding people accountable for their actions. But as like a coin, everything has its two sides. So with the positive, with benefits, it also have negative aspects, and the negative aspects can be explained as the potential for mob mentality. Sometimes the cancel culture can develop a form of mob justice, where individuals are targeted and shamed without proper investigation. It creates a fear of intolerance where people may hesitate to express their opinion. Second, impact on free speech and expression. And third would be impact on mental health as it leads to feeling of isolation, depression, and it hampers an individual's health. Although it has many effective positive benefits, we also should consider that it is important to be mindful of its potential negative impacts. What we hear are always not true. There are always two sides of the story. For example, we can see in this picture that two elephants are wearing the suits, and they can be seen as a political leaders. And it says, best part, I am only paying each of them $7.25 an hour, and people in front of them are just helping them to prove their opinion or to support them just for the money. It proves that not everything we hear are true, and there's always two sides of the story. One of the solutions to be considered for cancel culture is consider civil discourse, where they can express their opinion and engage in meaningful dialogue without resorting to insult and personal attack. It promotes understanding and empathy as they're likely to listen each other and consider different perspectives. It also helps to listen to opposing views and embrace diversity of opinion. Today, I explained about cancel culture and its benefits and the negative aspects of cancel culture, and then also provided a solution, which was the importance of open communication and discourse. So at the end, I do believe that cancel culture have its own benefit, and it provides people with the power to hold people accountable for something they do bad for society. But however, we should always consider that it has also bad impacts and can impact a society and as an individual. So at the end, I would like to end my presentation with a question. What do you guys think cancel culture has? Cancel culture is it more beneficial or it has more negative aspects? Thank you.
Very excellent presentation. So as to maintain the proper balance between games and culture, we'll return to games with Andrew.
Hi, everybody, me again. Okay, so also for the sociology of games class, we were required to do an immersion exercise. So we participate in one game for the assignment said 20 hours over the course of the semester. I stopped journaling after like 60, but I have put together this presentation on an analysis of the ranked competitive system of Magic the Gathering Arena. So, whoops. Okay, so the first thing is the game itself. So what is Magic the Gathering? It is a deck building card game that has been around since 1993. It's famously complex. I read some papers researching for this where they demonstrated the game was Turing complete, which means that in a game state of Magic the Gathering, you can build a functional computer. And optimal play has been likened to the halting problem, which is a historically very difficult computer science and programming problem that I also did research on, and I couldn't even understand what the problem was. It's also constantly expanding. There's more than 25,000 unique cards, most of which alter the game state in some way, with new sets of about 200 to 300 released 3 to 4 times a year. Matches typically take about 10 to 20 minutes. I was going for quantity in my personal immersion, so we were shooting for 10. And this game, which is very large, very complex, and constantly expanding, is the smallest unit in the larger observable model of Arena. So what I mean by that, I need to stop double clicking. So the game of Magic is hosted on the online platform of Magic Arena. Surrounding both of these things is something called the metagame. The metagame is composed of the knowledge and information about this game present in the real world. So in order to play the game optimally, you have to engage with the metagame, which is the larger structure surrounding it. So I did a lot of going online and I read other people's deck lists. I read blogs about the state of the game. I watched videos on it. I followed a whole bunch of Instagram accounts. The meta constantly shifts, so you need to actively keep up with it in order to correctly engage with the game. This is an example of a meta spread. So like different types of decks have different names and compose so much of like what you might be facing against. Midway between the model that is the game of Magic and the metagame that surrounds it is the ladder. So this is the ranked system. When you log in to the online platform, you play the game of Magic, and then whether or not you win that, you move up or down on the ladder. So this full game of Magic is treated as sort of a scoring mechanism for this secondary supporting game that is the ranked competitive ladder. So it abstracts the game that you log in to play. Yeah, Magic becomes a way to score points. Your goals completely shift as what they were in the original game because you're playing the game enough times that it almost becomes a scoring method. Rewards for doing well on this ranked ladder include mostly just in-game prizes like more virtual cards, more virtual money, virtual pets. But if you do really well, you get the chance to compete in tournaments. So once you're engaging with all 3 of these games, right, you've got the full 3-in-1 experience. You're playing the game to move on the ladder and observing the metagame to influence the first 2. The ranked ladder and the metagame are more real than the core game. In the setting of Magic, you're playing as a wizard fighting another wizard. But when I'm engaging with the metagame, I'm still me. You end up occupying a lot of your time with not playing the game, but engaging with it, which increases your immersion as it begins to bleed outward into your real life and you're following Instagram accounts and reading blog posts. Um, as an effect, the core game becomes a lot more attractive. You've immersed yourself in it a lot more. And most recently, this guy, by playing online, doing super well on the ranked ladder and going through this sort of tiered qualifier tournament, ended up winning 200,000 real world dollars. He was playing Is It Wizards for anybody who has also spent way too much time playing Magic the Gathering. Okay, so climbing the ladder. This is what I set out to do. I started down here in bronze 4. By the end of the experiment, I was right here. So this is limited. We don't care about limited. We care about constructed, where you observe the metagame, make a deck, and then engage with the game. So there's 6 ranks, each has 4 tiers, except for Mythic, the final one, which displays your current ranking as a percentile. So it'll be like, oh, you're better than 90% of other players in the format. And then there's top 1200 and top 200 who get to do those tournaments we were looking at earlier. Progress becomes a lot slower and games get harder as the competition stiffens. So right here, you get this huge decrease in how quickly you're going because the game gives you fewer points towards progression. And your opponents have also gone through the first 8 ranks and are pretty good at that point. This ranked information is not public. I looked for it everywhere. I found a couple player estimates that have 2 main theories. Nobody knows how many people are in Mythic. Since it displays a percentile, we don't know how many people are there and how many people you have to churn through before you can get to this goal of like competing in tournaments for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And right here at gold is where it halves your point progression. So people assume that if there's a bottleneck anywhere, it's right here where a lot of players are probably getting stuck. Okay, so I briefly mentioned earlier immersion. The core game is a scoring function for the arena system, and then the meta game informs your playing. So it sort of slowly bleeds out in a tiered system into your real life. The goal of engaging with the metagame is to improve at the game, and the goal of the game is to be fun to play. But the goal of the ranked system is to retain players. You want to keep going up, you want to keep facing better people, playing more interesting decks, and you probably want to win $200,000. So the game helps you with that. It gives you tools to further immerse yourself in the system. It lets you get little pets that sit next to you. It lets you make your cards look fun. It lets you play as like a bunch of different people. It honestly starts taking advantage of the sunk cost fallacy where you're like, I've put so much time into this game. I might as well give it 15 real dollars to, you know, oh, maybe I'll get 100,000. You won't. I did not. So, yeah, so notes on my playing time and some final thoughts. I'm gonna skip right to the end. Don't spend money on this. It has this mastery pass system. So if you're a free-to-play player, it gives you a little bit of reward for every time you log in and keep playing. I went on a vacation with my family this spring, and my first thought was, shoot, I'm not gonna get to complete my daily challenges on Magic Arena. It is still fun, but this sort of outward bleed of the 3-in-1 system has a nasty way of getting you way more involved in it than you need to be. If you have the opportunity to play it in paper and not online, you definitely should. Still a great game and I love it. But yeah, if you're looking for a game to get into and not spend too much time on, it's a great game right now. I put Serrated Scorpion on here because it's one of my favorite cards. Love this guy. All right, and then here's some of those papers I was talking about.
All right, last but certainly not least, we have our presentation on women's body ideals.
Hello, I'm Olivia Bowen, and I am doing my presentation on women's body ideals. This project was initially done for a problem-solving assignment for my Psychology of Prejudice class. But I am very excited to share this research with you, so let's get started. Okay, so first off, I want to put a warning that there are explicit and naked photos of beautiful women. Also, as a side note, I will be using the term fat throughout this presentation. And from my understanding, the community is trying to destigmatize the word, so I will be using it as a descriptor, not in any derogatory manner. Okay, so body ideals throughout history. Sorry, I got messed up. So ancient Egypt was from 1292 to 1069 BC. The desired traits were slender, narrow shoulders, high waist, long legs, and symmetrical face. In ancient Greece, the desirable traits were plump, pale skin, full-bodied, and pear-shaped. The Han Dynasty from 206 BC to 220 AD, the desired traits were slim waist, skinny, large eyes, and small feet. In the Italian Renaissance from 1400 to 1700 AD, the desirable traits included rounded stomach, full hips, large butt, and pale skin. In Victorian England from 1837 to 1901, the desirable traits included a clinched waist, full-figured body, hourglass shape, large breasts, and the illusion of a big butt. The Roaring 20s, which was 1920s America, the desired traits were flat chest, small butt, straight figure, boyish body, and long legs. The Golden Age of Hollywood, which was 1950s America, the desired traits were curvy, hourglass figure, large breasts, and slim waist. And Marilyn Monroe was the icon of this generation, and she is pictured in both the top right and top left, as well as the bottom left. The swinging 60s, 1960s America and the United Kingdom, the desired traits were thin, small breasts, long slim legs, and skinny arms. And Audrey Hepburn was the icon of the 60s. She is pictured in both the top left and second from the right. 1980s America was the supermodel era, and the desired traits were athletic, tall, toned, with long legs. Heroin chic was the style in 1990s America, and the desirable traits were extremely thin, light skin, and long limbs. Y2K America was in the 2000s, and the desired traits were prominent hip bones, toned, tan, and defined collarbones. In my opinion, the biggest icon was Paris Hilton, which is second from the right. Okay, so why am I interested? I've taken multiple sociology and psychology classes where the ideal woman was still described as a white, tall, skinny, straight-bodied blonde. While I believe this type of woman is still highly admired in our current society, I had the feeling that new ideals were arising. With that and a combination of my interest in the history of the subject, it was obvious that this was the topic for me. Okay, so what is the ideal body today? Here's what I did. I added this post to my private Instagram story. This allowed people who followed my account to vote based on their personal preference. Around 50 people voted on each poll, at least 50 people. Only people within my generation participated, Gen Z, just because that's who follows me on my Instagram. And luckily, 50% of the participants who responded were female and 50% were male. And this is what I posted. Hello, I'm working on a project for a psychology class about women's body ideals through history. If you are willing, please vote on the following post by choosing the photo you find most attractive or aesthetically pleasing. Please try to ignore all other details such as clothing, pose, or skin color. I also tried my best to make each pairing of photos resemble one another as much as possible. And here are the results. So first, let me explain what we're looking at. The pie chart on the right is representative of the overall vote. Choice B got the majority of votes with 87%. The two charts on the left break down the votes based on gender. Of the people who voted for option A, 5 of them were women and only 2 of them were men. For the second poll, option B received the majority with 79%. Of the people who voted for option A, 9 of them were men and only 2 of them were women. Photo A got the vast majority of votes with 96%. Option B received 2 votes, both of them being female. This pair of photos focuses on butt size and shape. A is a natural and small butt, while option B represents a larger, more Kardashian-esque style butt. 76% of people voted for the latter. The majority of the votes cast for A were by women with 10 votes, only 3 by men. These 2 photos are representing different chest sizes. 83% of participants voted for option A. And again, the majority of votes cast for B were by women with the total of 6 votes, 50% higher than that of men. This poll was won by option B by a long shot. A received only 8% of the votes. I found this to be very surprising because the woman in picture B seems to be a mother with visible stretch marks and loose skin around the abdomen. Of the people who did vote for option A, 3 of them were women and only 1 was a man. This pair of photos showcases both boobs as well as the stomach. A received the majority with 65% of the votes. This post was particularly interesting because more women preferred option B in comparison to A, while more men preferred option A. B got 63% of the votes and A received 37% of the votes. The breakdown of gender for this poll was very even between the 2 options. And then for the remainder of the polls, I will only be presenting the overall results due to time constraints. So for this one, A got 35% of the votes and B got the majority with 65% of the overall vote. And this poll was pretty close. Picture A received the majority with 57% and B got 43% of the votes. This poll represents a naturally small butt versus a naturally big butt. And A got 25% of the votes and B got the majority with 75% of the votes. Picture A received 33% while B received 67% of the votes. This showcases a naturally curvy body with like an athletic type body, and A received the majority with 75% of the votes. Picture A received 33% of the votes, while B gained the majority with 67%. This was another very close vote, but B gained the majority with 53%. Picture A received 37%, while B got the majority with 63% of the votes. Again, A received the majority with 76% of the votes, while B received 24% of the votes. And here is my analysis. We are currently in a transition. Curvy women were preferred in almost every poll. When analyzing the voters who preferred the thinner or smaller option, women were typically in the majority, but not always. Fat women were often preferred over extremely skinny women. In recent decades, this would have been quite rare. Big features such as breasts and butts were almost always preferred. And then here is some feedback from some of the participants who took my poll. The first quote is from one of my male participants. He stated, "I felt bad after taking this. Hope it helps though." He then explained to me that he felt bad because he consistently voted for the thicker or bigger option in my poll, yet has only dated extremely thin, petite women. The second quote says, "I feel like this revealed that I have body and self-esteem issues." This poll, this response was sent to me by a very beautiful and very thin woman. And the third quote says, "I wish there was an option closer to my body type I could have selected." This quote was written by a very skinny woman with medium-sized breasts and a naturally big butt. This just shows how many different body types there are and how it would have been almost impossible for me to include each type within this presentation. And here's the problem. The male body ideal has stayed pretty much the same throughout all of history, tall and muscular. Women's body ideals, however, are constantly changing and evolving. The pressure to conform to the ever-changing body ideals has caused women an array of issues. 1, promotion of eating disorders such as anorexia and bulimia. 2, an unhealthy relationship with diet and gym culture. 3, women using apps such as Facetune to alter the shape and appearance of their body. 4, paying for surgery such as boob jobs, Brazilian butt lifts, and liposuction. Americans spent about $14.6 billion in 2021 on cosmetic procedures alone. 5, fat women are still underrepresented in the media due to their weight, and typically when they are featured in pop culture, it tends to be in a comedic nature. And then I have some examples of the problem that I found within the media. So this post says, when everyone else is criticizing these celebrities for using Ozempic, but if I gained any access to it ever, I would 100% join that bandwagon. Then you can see the search in the comment section is, what is Ozempic for? Which means that that was a commonly asked question within the comment section. And Ozempic's intended use was for adults with type 2 diabetes. But since one of the symptoms is weight loss, a lot of non-diabetics have started taking the drug, almost to the point where it's no longer readily available for the people who genuinely need it for their diabetes. And this post received 82.7 thousand likes, and the top comments included, and you know I'd have Ozempic parties with my besties, right? I'm Googling how to get Ozempic every day. And then someone finally said, this comment section is so sad. The next post says, sure, being inclusive is fun, but let's be real, fat girls will never look good on the runway. Be mad, I don't care. It's not anyone's problem but yours that you're fat, like lose weight. This received just over 17,000 likes. And the top comments included, I'm unapologetically loving the brutally honest era of these accounts. Real, queen, real. I feel like clothes on websites look better on skinny models because it helps me to really see the fit, you know? I don't know, call me mean. And then I found this post while I was searching for pictures for this project, and it's from Oprah.com, and the caption is how to not look fat in a swimsuit. So I thought this would be an appropriate time for me to put some disordered eating statistics. Disordered eating is one of the most deadly of all mental disorders. There are over 10,000 deaths due to disorders such as anorexia and bulimia. That is about 1 death every hour. In addition to natural death, 26% of people with eating disorders attempt suicide. And then here's the cause. Culture theory. Prejudice is embedded in our culture. Categorization theory. People will unconsciously divide themselves into in-groups and out-groups. Self-concept management theory. Prejudice could be due to one's efforts to maintain a positive view of themselves. Women strive for the types of bodies that are shown and admired within popular media, such as movies, music, social media, and commercials. The rich upper class often drive trends in attempts to flaunt their wealth. The upper class will change the beauty standard once it becomes easily obtainable by the lower class in hopes to recreate the visual divide of the classes. Some examples of this are the people of China during the time of the Han Dynasty fancied small feet. The rich would bind their feet to get this effect. This would mangle the feet to the point of the women becoming immobile, but due to their wealth, they could pay people to carry them around, a luxury the poor working class did not have. In ancient Greece, it was desirable to be heavier because only the rich could afford to eat enough to get fat. During the Italian Renaissance, being pale was beautiful because the rich did not have to get tan from working outside. And now that BBLs and lip fillers are so accessible, the Kardashians have removed their implants and dissolved their lip filler. Possible indication of another future change. The solution, social learning theory, specifically in regards to media influence. People are influenced by what and who they see in the media. The presence of people such as Nicki Minaj, Beyonce, Lizzo, Meg Thee Stallion, Snooki, and the Kardashians have had a direct influence on societal body ideals. If there is a broader range of bodies within the media, then a broader range of body types will be admired and appreciated. Enacting the solution, here's my idea. Have an annual fashion show that has a model representative of each body type and weight group. Extend that idea to a modeling reality TV show. The premise of this show would be for amateur models of all body types to learn more about how to dress and embrace their shape and style. The winner would then be given the opportunity to walk in the annual fashion show. Assessing the success of my solution. The reality show would be an obvious failure if only one body type ever won. The show would then have to be canceled or turned into a typical modeling show where only skinny body types were represented. The TV show and fashion show would be a success if the models who won gained fame from the fashion show and could use this accomplishment to further their career. A happy conclusion. Although fat phobia is still present in the media, times are certainly changing. Through my experience, as well as this research, I've noticed that this generation is rather accepting of all body types as long as they look relatively healthy, or at least in comparison to past generations. There are many different body types, and while the societal favorite will most likely keep evolving, it is promising to see such range within the results of my poll. I hope this presentation has both educated and inspired you to no longer strive for societal body ideals or expect them out of others, and rather embrace and love your own body for its unique shape and size, because chances are there's someone out there who prefers you. Then here are my references, and thank you for listening.
Yes, we got about 14 minutes for questions, give or take.
Does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
I just need a comment. When you trace the history like that, I don't think I realize that change.
It's just about every generation.
If I recall on that, you kind of consider like modern body ideal changes, right? It's kind of for example, China. 5 years we had a shift to what referred to broadly as paper challenge, where you're not just supposed to be thin, you're supposed to be paper thin, and you have to be A6 count, A4 count, A2 count, and so forth, right? So they were kind of account for the shift in beauty standards. Is there one we consider to be kind of more mainstream, or is it being with China's complete aberration, where we kind of have different advanced beauty standards happening kind of differently across cultures?
Yeah, I would say now, as well as any other time in history, there's probably 100 different beauty trends. Like even within, America, there's probably 10 different beauty ideals, like that. No one in my poll, and there's a post that I didn't post in here just for time. No one received 0 votes, like generally there's societal body ideals and then everyone has their own personal preference. And I believe the media portrays that there's really only one thing and everyone likes this one thing and everything else is ugly. But I feel like this poll kind of showed that, no, that's not the case. There is a societal preference, which might be changing right now, but overall, personal preference, pretty diverse, and I'm sure that goes for any culture around the world.
Right, and at least nicely kind of all that I agree. So you mentioned you posted this on your right? You know, like it access to you or so you have a feel for kind of cultures
Yeah, so obviously I have a lot of people from like USD on my account since I've been here. And then I also have people, I live in Wisconsin, so I have a lot of people from there. I'd say that was the majority of people like that I went to high school with. So this is pretty representative, I'd say, of the Midwest. While I do have people from like other countries that took the poll and other states, majority of them are from the West region.
And responsible or is it their fault to say beauty standards for us? Or do you think that it's necessarily like more on us
Yeah, like I said in my conclusion, the body ideal is constantly gonna change based off what the rich think is cute, and they can think whatever they would like is cute, you know what I mean? That's not my deal. But like I said in the conclusion, the goal is to just like what you like and become comfortable with that. Because like I said, no one got 0 votes, someone in that poll liked each body type, you know, so I think believing that and kind of living like that throughout your life, just with the confidence of one of you might like my body, one of you might not, and that's cool, you know? But I think that would be a lot easier of a mindset if there were a larger variety of bodies in commercials or on TikTok, which I think is slowly happening, and that's why we get this result. Well, thank you, everybody.
Are you all familiar with Lucky and then?
Huh?
You know, familiar with Lucky and then we're creating really the city, it's video games. It's pretty much has a lot of luck balance, doing everything, turning on luck and do. And I really know, I actually like,
Don't think about it.
That. So the questions I have, I think it's, I think have this. What is your game? You're going to be. By these to. Are you going to bring? And have them propose, you know. There's a profits here and we're creating, we're in charge, $7.25 for this game. How are you going to be able to manufacture it, get it done, and be able to sell it for that price, all those things.
You got it?
I can try them. So we had talked about a little bit, a lot of the other groups didn't really focus on their
Pricing.
marketing as much as their distribution. So we talked a little bit about our distribution and how we try and be local and we try and stay like domestic and distribute, you know, on smaller sources that way. So that way we avoid having to like pay margins to like the bigger distributors. We probably, and we didn't fully agree on this, but we would try and retain rights with our manufacturer and distributor. And a big part of the donation to Care International and or any other minimum wage focused charity is that's free advertising. And so more people would buy it. So if eventually we do shift to a model where we're like, this is how much we raise for charity, and we can start making that money back, we become an established name. So initially, like at rollout and launch, it would not be very profitable. We'd be trying to pay Blue Orange or Game Right. We'd be kicking profits to Care International or another partner charity. And a lot of that early stage would be focused on visibility.
And ideally, to make the game, it'd be pretty cheap. They're just cards and dice. So I'd hope it wouldn't take too much to make it, but who knows?
So
Fair. Yeah.
It's fair. I don't study economics. I really don't know the logistics of it, but ideally I'd like to make it. We would like to make it so it could help poverty and address the issue of minimum wage struggles. Yes, Candace?
Like poverty and not to charity work, we advertising, you're still going to be doing some.
Exactly. Well, we still gotta make a profit to keep making the games, but ideally most of our profits would go to Care International or other poverty combative organizations. But yeah, it's kind of a tough balance, but we're still in the initial phases, as you know, of making our game. But we'll present it next week and hope to have more details to provide on that.
So it comes to that.
If state minimum wage increases. Is one of the things we were talking about, is like, you know, if people get paid more, they can afford to pay a little bit more. The price is like a bit of a marketing tool, is like, oh, we're selling it for an hour's worth of labor. And one of the big things that we want to promote with the game is like, we want to make more money for charity. Sure, would be cool if state minimum wage increase, and whether or not that's a realistic goal is neither here nor there. That's just another.
We're just very idealistic with our idea, but yes, Alan.
None. I did not spend any money. That was. My initial research question was, how far can I get in this without spending money? And the answer is all the way if you put way too much time in. So I solved it. That's what you do. John.
I was playing this like get like I have to be every game, and I noticed that like they're all the other very card games are eerily similar in like the types of stuff you buy and interact with. So like you talk a little bit about your climbing process with like how you play the game product. This is secret for people want to get into that.
Sure, I do. I wish I had my journal with me. So there is for those who are more familiar with the game, there's a bunch of different archetypes. I did like a 4-point breakdown in the actual paper that I wrote. But there's 4 primary archetypes. They're control, combo, mid-range, and aggro. And none of them matter to me but aggro. Because if you're trying to climb quickly and efficiently, you want to play as aggressive as a strategy as you can. Because I was intentionally initiating game states where I was either winning quick or losing quicker, so I could just close the game and start a new one. So like in the hour I have between the morning shift and my classes, I could get in like a dozen games. I would just whip through them as quickly as possible. So I'm familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh! And how the game state feels, but anything that gives you like that really quick determining process, you either know you're going to win or you know you're going to lose, and can mail is great. But that was kind of contingent on the fact that aggressive strategies in the current metagame are really, really good. You're typically in either a winning or losing state by turn 4 or 5. And turns go real quick once you've done, a dozen of them that day already. So really what you want to do is you want to identify something that you can build cheaply. I didn't want to spend any money on this game, so I spent the first couple of weeks grinding to get enough wild cards to make the deck. Or I could have bought 4 of them for $9.99 USD, but I didn't want to do that. So yeah, I spent a couple of weeks crafting the cheapest, fastest thing I could, and then just trying to get as much out of it as I could. I could have run other more optimal things if I really spent money, but it's really just about the game turnover. Yeah.
Why would I want to give you an hour, like, for money, just to be broken? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would I want to? What makes it worth it? You know what I mean?
Still a fun game. Like we may have made the game for the purpose to be like educational and like bring awareness to minimum wage, but I would say if you like games like Uno, they're kind of competitive and like you're trying to outlast the other people, you like our game a lot because like we said, it's volatile. Like both games I played with Andrew, I was in the lead like for most of the game. Then like matter of like bad rolls, I got taken out. So it's very competitive. It's fun, but also brings a message too. So I guess we got that. Hopefully. Yes.
You go back and gather. We don't want to live like, ideally you want to have life in this thing, all really well lived, right? Like a real. Like, how does Magic the Gathering, how would it fit in ideally to life of
So are you sort of asking like, what's the draw to play the game in the first place, or?
No, I'm saying like, thinking about what life moment is,
Hmm.
how would that actually fit in or not fit in.
Sure, so for me, yeah, so personally, one of the reasons that I'm drawn to the game is it's a creative outlet. The card pool that's constantly getting bigger because they're constantly trying to sell you more cards is really awesome for like self-expression. Like if I'm playing not for the experiment and strictly for myself, I love playing control strategies, which take like an hour for a game, and you're like, I don't know, it makes you feel very cool. You can design a deck that does that can induce game states and let you take actions that feel very fun. It's a social game. You don't have to be talking about the game the whole time. So I have a friend in Minnesota who we get together like every couple of years, and we like do a little mini tournament, and it's just sort of catch back up. So yeah, there's self-expression through deck building and play style. There's a very big sense of community, like the meta game, because it's so essential for like playing the game like correctly or optimally. It's very easy to like get in touch with other people and like talk about the game and also just like who they are. So like I've met a lot of people through playing the game both online and in person. It's at its core, it's a very social game. Like you'll see a lot of people like underlining the gathering part of the name. And I'd say that's if you're looking for how it contributes to a life well lived, you're really looking at the social element more than the game itself.
Thanks.
Well, we are at time. So we pause.
Feel free to give us an A.